Moss Media.
Welcome to Anything But Cliché, a place for real talk about age gaps, culture clashes, and all the things people whisper about but rarely discuss out loud.
Yeah, we're kind of defining a relationship on our own terms.
I would say unconventional relationship.
In every sense of the term. So many dynamics that come into our relationship. Our races, our age. You're like basically on Social Security.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, I love you.
Here are your hosts, Clifton and Shay.
Hola chicos! Welcome to another episode of Anything But Cliché. As always, I'm Clifton.
I'm Shay.
And together we're Cliché. So we're here in Barcelona, Spain. What do you think?
I love it. It's been such a great experience so far.
And this is your first time on the continent?
Yes, in Europe.
Yeah, fantastic. We're here in Barcelona. We're getting ready to go on a cruise. Super excited also because I got to connect with one of my really good friends, Todd Cowen. He's out here, I guess, been about a year now. Moved originally from Texas, moved to Indiana where our paths crossed, and then New York City, Manhattan if I'm not mistaken, on to London, and now Barcelona. Todd, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to see you both, and I'm excited to have you in Barcelona.
Thanks so much. It's been great. Yeah, we've really enjoyed the city. So many cool things. But if you could just turn the heat down a little bit, we'd appreciate that.
It has been very hot and humid.
You know, it seems like it's a month early this year. We're not foreign to this.
You're used to performing a little earlier than you should, right?
That's my reputation precedes me.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. You've lived in a lot of different places. Born in Texas. Yeah, what part?
Yeah, so I was born in Fort Worth, Texas. I celebrated my half century last year. So in 1974. Thank you. So Fort Worth, and lived there till I was 10 years old. My father was in charge of all the gymnastics in the country for the men's program in the United States, and in 1984 they moved the headquarters from Fort Worth to Indianapolis, and that's what made that transition.
Yeah, so initiated that first move.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so you didn't have a whole lot of decision-making power.
No. Yeah.
10 years old.
Yeah. At 10, basically, I was like, I like Fort Worth. This is the only city I know.
Sure.
But he said, I make the money, so we're moving. But it was. It ended up being a very good move, and I would say the catalyst, because I'm interested to hear from both of you, like what kind of got your juices flowing for maybe stepping out of comfort zones and where you were from. But I think moving from Texas to Indiana started that permission structure around, thinking that there's more to the world than
Sure.
Just what your little town, or not little town, but just where you're born and raised.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, inertia, right?
Yeah.
Or momentum. It's a motherfucker. People get stuck in places because that's all they know, and that first move is really difficult. But I think you're right. It set the stage for you to feel like you could move as an adult, later in life. So Indiana to New York. I mean, you stayed in Indiana. That's where you did undergrad, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I went to Indiana University, played soccer there, had a great experience.
Intramurals?
Yeah, intramurals and a little bit of competitive.
There we go.
So it was a good program, but I really enjoyed that. But athletics was a big part of our family. I think 20 years in Indianapolis, so formative years, as you can imagine. And it was a great place to grow up. It was a type of place where you could leave your doors unlocked, you know what I mean? You could go to friends' houses.
So important.
Yeah. And so, real sense of community. But at the same time, I think once you got to a point and you kind of figured everything out, I was looking to stretch some muscles, tear some fibers, as I say. I had a professional opportunity to move to New York from Indiana.
Was that a difficult transition for you?
It was a difficult transition, and again, I'd love to hear about, from the two of you, and I think you both made cross-country moves.
Well, yeah, I mean, Shay has obviously grew up in New York, and I wonder if you guys overlapped. When did you leave New York?
I left in
So I was there from early 2007 to 2018.
Yeah.
So probably past each other.
Imagine.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, how crazy, right? What a small world.
It is.
I mean, you guys might have ridden the subway.
Starbucks, anything.
Might have packed like sardines.
Yeah.
Not even now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you said is true. Like it is, you know, the fact that you moved when you were younger, it showed that you don't need to stay like in the same place. There's more to life than, you know, Fort Worth or just Texas or where you grew up. For me, it was a big, like, learning curve, just being able to move. Also, I have the type of family that they're all kind of in the same area, so I knew if I left, I would be the only one. But my family was very supportive about me, like, getting out there. They always knew I'd end up in California. They didn't know when. So, I mean, I think the hardest part for me was just leaving my family. And taking that leap and knowing I was kind of going to be in California by myself. So there's no, you know, calling someone like, I need help. It was like, you're going to have to figure everything out on your own.
And why California? I mean,
She heard I might be there. Word gets out, you know what I mean?
I just always love the beach and the water. And everyone's always mocking my voice, like, you sound like you're from California, like a valley girl. And I'm like,
that's
I
so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first met her, I was like, wait, you're from New York? Why do you have a valley girl accent?
Yeah. That's what I used to like, or people would think I sound like I'm from Long Island. So I always said if I wasn't in California, I would be on Long Island. Because I always wanted to be by the water too. I knew I wanted the beaches to be a part of like my everyday routine, and I couldn't have that in New York.
I gotta give some credit to Long Island beaches. Like, so living in New York for 13 years, people would always want to get out of the city in the summertime. They're like, oh, we're gonna go to the beach. And I'm like, New York beach? But I mean, I've been around, and I can't slag off New York beaches. Like,
what the
you
longest
go out east,
the longest wave I've ever surfed is actually in Montauk. It's crazy. I mean, people don't associate New York with surfing, but Far Rockaway, I surfed there. And took a 9-foot longboard on the New York subway from Times Square out to Far Rockaway. If you can imagine that, I got some looks. You know that scene from Big Daddy where his dad's telling him, "Hey, don't go buy a bunch of stupid shit," and he's walking down the street with a longboard in New York. That was me.
I did a little surfing in Long Beach back in the mid 2000s. So
I don't think people associate Long Island with Montauk and the Hamptons and all that, but that it's the same landmass. But
absolutely,
when you say Long Island, it conveys a certain connotation. But then when you say Hamptons, it's like, oh, okay, right.
I mean, I've always loved it though. I always say people who lived on Long Island have the best of both worlds because you have the suburbs, but you can just get right on the LIRR and have the city, and I feel like they're always really well-rounded people because they have both.
That was something that when I lived in New York, and I lived in Manhattan for that entire time, and I worked with so many people that either lived in the suburbs of New Jersey or in Westchester or on Long Island, and I just, having come from Texas, having come from Indiana, the idea of an hour and a half commute was just mind-blowing. Because I was used to getting in my car and driving 10 minutes to work and sitting down and doing the thing. And some of these people, what they would put, I was just like...
But, a car commute is different from a train commute, right?
Yeah, working commute versus kind of a...
There's all those unspoken rules that on commuter trains in the morning, right? You don't make a sound, right? They're so quiet, you can get work done.
Work done, zone out, sleep. Listen to, anything but cliche. Listen to your favorite podcast.
Yeah. That's definitely a note to the audience, little subconscious plug, It's like, I'm on the LIRR or Metro North. Isn't that the one that goes up to, that's the one I used to take when I was in Connecticut and get into the city. Hopefully people will just be like, wait a minute, we got on the train, what are we supposed to be doing? Oh, that's right, anything but cliche. All right, cool. So New York to London, how did that all transpire?
So again, another professional opportunity. I hate to go so far as to say boredom was, kind of ruled the day, but I tell people all the time that moving from Indiana to New York was as big of a move as moving from New York to London.
Oh, I can imagine. So, with regard to culture shock and just the pace of life,
That's
and things
exactly
of that
right.
nature.
Kind of small town to big city, no horizon, concrete jungle. Pace at which people move, pace at which people talk, make decisions, want to get things done. I would be remiss if I didn't say, since we're celebrating our 20-year anniversary, Clifton.
Our 20-year friendship anniversary. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Come on now.
I'm fine with it.
You know what? I'll lean into that as well.
I thought you might. I just needed to prod you a little bit. I would say one of the most difficult moves I made was from Indiana to New York because of the friendship structure and the group of people that I had encountered. And we only had that, 18 months to 2 years, but it was a really important time in my life, and those friendships have endured, and it means a lot to me. So again, it's a little bit of a plug and a shout out to the fact that, we remain in touch and how much you guys mean to me. But that was difficult. And it goes back to what you were saying, Shay. Like, I had this permission structure from family that said, "Go live your life."
I love that term, permission structure.
Yeah,
it's.
They really set the the pathway.
Yeah.
Not only from the move from Texas to Indiana, but my dad traveled so much and he saw so much of the world. And I don't know that it was necessarily glorifying it, but he would come back with stories, and I kind of thought maybe I wanted to do that one day. And so, whether they meant to or not, there was this kind of love letter to the globe and to the world and to travel. So
I think that's so important, right? The coolest thing about travel is you always get something from it. If you find a place that you love, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. The croquettes in Barcelona, with the Iberian ham and the manchego. Oh my God, like take me back, right? And so you bring that memory home, or you absolutely hate the place and you're like, this really makes me appreciate home as well. So either way, it's a win.
It's
right?
a great counter argument. That's exactly right. And I think it allows you to see, gain a different perspective. Which brings us maybe back to that transition from New York to London.
Yeah.
There is some personal and professional opportunities presented itself for me to relocate to London. It was a good opportunity, and what it really allowed me to do was, again, stretch those muscles even further and continue to move east. Now, it did become more difficult, as you mentioned, Shay, because I was on the same time zone as family when I was in New York, and they were in Indiana, so it was easy to connect with them. And then all of a sudden it was a 5-hour time zone difference. And I think, sorry Mom and Dad, but I think they thought I was in Mars, and there was no way they could possibly have communication. So we definitely started to have a little bit more distant relationship, not just geographically, but
It's funny you mention that, because the time difference can really influence how you're able to communicate, right? I mean, honestly, there have been many times, being on Pacific time, that I think, I should reach out to Todd. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, it's 7 p.m. here, so it's 6 a.m. there, or something or no, it's 9 hours difference, right? I think from
so from here, I think 9 hours difference now.
So I mean, it's like, I don't want to send a message in the middle of the night, especially being a new father and all that stuff. Like, you're probably awake anyway.
I feel the same with my sister, that there has been more distance with our relationship, because she's in London, I'm in San Diego. So the times that I do have time to actually sit and have a conversation, it's complete opposite hours for her. So most of our communication now is not, there's a few times where, like, maybe once every few months we'll have like a 1-2 hour FaceTime call, but for the most part I'm just texting her, because that's the most convenient way.
It definitely feels like the world's kind of gone to that texting for lots of reasons, but the text kind of ruled the day when we moved. And two things that I find interesting about that. One, I remember calling you to ask you to be my best man, but I was concerned about like the time at which I needed to call. I think I woke you up.
One of the best man, the better man.
Well, we'll get the two of you in a cage and let you figure it out. Exactly. No, but that's a little anecdote about like the time difference from California to London at the time. But also one little, again, another anecdote. I had an opportunity to go to Singapore and Hong Kong for work back in 2019.
Sorry, as a permanent, semi-permanent?
No, sorry, just for 2 weeks. We had an office there. It was kind of go tell people a little bit of, in that marketplace what I do and how I might be able to collaborate with them. And so it was a really, really great trip. Did a layover back in Dubai. So again, more kind of world travel. But the reason I say this is because it's 12 hours from East Coast time. And it was like for a 2-week time frame. I talked to my parents every day in the morning and at night because we were always opposite each other.
Yeah, that 12 hours actually makes it kind of easy because I don't have to do any math. I can just say, oh, it's AM here, it's PM there.
Exactly right. So I mean, I went from having like again a little bit of a distant relationship with them for the previous like call it 14 years to talking to them every day, twice a day. Evening and night, just to tell them about what was going on. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
The other thing I remember during the pandemic, because everything was kind of locked down, there was, you could reach out to anybody anytime.
They wanted to talk to you. We're on board.
Yeah, you no longer had a reason to say,
turn on the window.
Yeah, I don't want to bother them during work. It's like, they're sitting there.
They're just waiting for you to call.
That's exactly right. So it was almost like that was one of the great equalizers, the pandemic. I'm not saying it was a good moment for anybody, but
no.
I remember vividly sitting there because we were in London at the time. We were on the Thames, right next to where like super yachts would kind of moor when they would come to town, and it just hit me that it didn't matter whether you were the world's richest person sitting on a boat or you were somebody that was, struggling, in a studio apartment. We were all going through the same thing uniquely, and all terrified of dying. So it was kind of it was a moment in time that kind of stood still.
That's a really good sort of point or shout out to the pandemic, right? Because it sort of enabled us or taught us that we really could be remote and still be connected. I mean, I think of a time where we did a happy hour together, right? You, me, and Jonesy, our other close friend who's down, well, who knows where he is right now. It could be in Dominican, it could be in Texas, he might be in Rio, we don't know.
Wherever the
wind blows us.
17 knots is what he means, I think.
So, that is actually one of the kind of takeaways from the pandemic was, hey, it's okay to connect remotely with the people you love, so.
And I feel like it made things more acceptable.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Just from personal, having family members pass away, and obviously we're in a pandemic, you can't go, but the fact that I was still able to like view the funeral, like, they would live stream and you can see, and I'm like, I feel like it did open, make technology more acceptable. Because I don't think before, if I would see someone recording at a funeral, I'd be like mortified. I'd be like, oh my God, but now it's like more acceptable, and there are situations where people can't come to certain things, and being able to stream and still feel a part of it or like pay your respects, I feel like that was, a nice change.
Well, and you're a relatively new father, so, did that sort of make it easier for you to be separate from your family and have children,
Yeah, in terms of my nuclear for my parents.
Right.
Yeah, actually, it's a good question. We were actually in a bit of a unique scenario because we were in the UK on a work visa, with U.S. passports, so we didn't have the same travel restrictions other than at the very beginning. But I do think that our life was in London at the time, so it was natural that we were gonna have children. So I guess it wasn't necessarily scripted in that regard as to when. But what the pandemic did do is it created a little bit of a filter over the joy of trying to create a moment in life to where it's like, is this the world we want to do this in? At the same time, faced with the fact that we were, we're getting older, I was getting deep into my 40s, and my wife was like in mid 30s, so it was trying to figure out like this is the right time for us, but is it the right time to bring a life into this world?
Sure.
So that was kind of being more of a we were faced, I guess, with time constraints, biological constraints, and so it was kind of, I don't think that so again, sorry mom and dad, wasn't trying to exclude anybody, but they would have been a secondary consideration where we were in
and I think that the question I think I was asking though was, did the pandemic make it easier for you to make that decision, or you were just like, no, we're doing it anyway?
Yeah, well, I think the only thing the pandemic did was make us kind of just second guess where we were in the moment. But I mean, I could go so far as to say it made it easier to try because
we still have free time.
Now we're getting into the spirit of anything but cliche.
So, what position did you find was most, conducive to fertilization?
I got to be honest. To be honest, we wouldn't even know.
So, London to Barcelona, that's a shorter hop. But what was the impetus for that move?
A couple things. So I've had probably a 17, 18-year love affair with Barcelona for a lot of reasons: cultural, food, sport. Really, really love and admire the football team, the soccer team, FC Barcelona, and so I've had the opportunity to see them play almost 50 times. 20 of those were when I was still living in the U.S. and traveling abroad. I used to try to find a game where they were playing around Europe and then go see a new city.
That's cool.
So that was going back to kind of 2008. That's what I had been doing in terms of like a motivation or catalyst for travel to Europe. So I've always had like I said, an admiration for Barcelona, and work was bringing me here more and more. I work with a lot of people that are on the move, kind of globally mobile-minded, and so Americans, Brits moving back and forth between the U.S. and the U.K. and Europe and the Middle East, and so work was bringing me down here more and more frequently. I would say, without going in any sort of direction, having a 2-year-old and maybe not needing to go back to the U.S. and at the same time having been in the U.K. long enough, we got U.K. citizenship. But also things were starting to get a little more complicated there, more expensive, and was presented with this opportunity to come here and keep my career going, expand it. Get on a really nice tax regime down here in Spain. And so all these things, the stars just kind of aligned. And we just happened to have our European headquarters office, so the company I work for, their office was here in Barcelona, so it was just a no-brainer. And so I have to be really thankful to like my wife and my daughter for allowing this to happen, because it was easy to say, all right, here's the plan. We kind of needed buy-in from everybody.
Yeah, and you want that support, obviously, because they're like your support. So
yeah,
you want
exactly.
to make sure they're on board and they're comfortable with what the moves are making.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and I think I wouldn't be as effective at what I do if I didn't feel like they were settled or into it. So,
it probably puts you at ease knowing that they're comfortable, and they seem to love it here.
Yeah. In terms, I don't know if you have something you wanted to ask.
I was just going to say you're being pretty elusive with your line of work. Are you an international arms dealer? I mean, what's going on over here? Merchant of death?
No, what I typically tell people is I try to help people realize their global mobility dream as efficiently as possible. So.
In the finance sector.
Yeah, so mostly what I do is I do cross-border and international wealth management, investment management work. But so much of that is tied into immigration and how people get into certain countries. So much of it is tied into the tax position of their home country versus their new adopted country. And so a lot of what I do is...
A lot of ins, a lot of outs. So.
Yeah, a lot of what have yous. So what I try to do though is more times than not, people are coming to me with an interest in doing something, and I do everything I can to give them validation in that they're going to be able to do it without misrepresenting or kind of what is used like without lying to them that, oh yeah, you've done everything you could do. It's going to be great. If people are going to face challenges, whether it be economically or socially or whatever, I'll try to help them and be transparent and forthright and let them know. But more times than not, they've done a bit of research, and I'm just there to cast a spotlight on some of the challenges that they might face to make that transition a little bit better.
Yeah, speaking of challenges, I mean, it's pretty crazy. There are I believe about 2 million expats, American expats. Roughly a quarter of those are living here. I'm sorry, there's about almost 9 million expats, 2 million of whom live here in Europe.
Yeah.
So, a quarter of that population chose, this continent. And, with that in mind, do you have any sort of anecdotes or what have you about culture shock or, things that you expected and then were, kind of an unexpected surprise or things of that nature?
Yeah, if one of the ones that's the biggest culture shock was, I'll touch on maybe London and UK first, and then I'll have a think as I'm talking about Europe. But one of the things that I found is that when you go to visit the UK, or you go to visit London, the Brits they're fantastic. Like they really embrace you. They want you to have a good time. They very helpful. When you go to work there, it's a little bit of a different story. Yeah. And I think, this is my own perspective, I guess we can, I can tell you what I think, you know what I mean? It doesn't need to be true. Yeah. I'm just saying, it was my experience. And I found that once you're living there, once you're working there, a lot of my, let's call it, like my colleagues, they didn't have the same kind of appreciation for my journey, or the sacrifice or the effort that was made to be there. There was almost a little bit of a disdain for the American optimism and attitude that you can just pick up and go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because it's a culture that's just been rained on for 1,000 years, and so they just take, like what life gives and accept it as a forever and a reality. And I'm not, again, it's not slighting the Brits. It's just there was a little bit of animosity in the professional workplace. And I worked at 2 different companies, so I felt like my sample size was a little bit bigger than most. But that was a little bit of a shock because you can imagine culturally you're so similar. They always say 2 countries separated by a common language.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, but that was something that I thought was a little bit strange. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like everybody was rude. It just was. It wasn't that same deference to like you've moved over here, you've left everything behind. Like it was more just like whatever.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like what, almost like what gives you the right to think that you can just like pick up and do
it's
that.
So interesting.
And it's like, I don't know, I'm an American. Like we can. I mean, like you had the courage to pick up from New York and move to California.
Yeah, I think it's also there is a level of privilege that comes along with being mobile. I think a lot of people have that. They just feel like they have an anchor tied to them, and that anchor is usually family, work, existing situation, whether it be a home or maybe some other asset that ties them to a location. But I think having moved many times myself, from starting in the Bay Area, going to school in Colorado, moving out to New York, and then Belize abroad, and then coming back to Indiana where our paths crossed, and then down to San Diego. I mean, I did the full tour, right? And there's a lot of people who are like, to your point, they don't like the fact, or in some ways they feel like, again, what gives you the right to be able to do that? What is it that's, you're not special, Like, why do you think you can just do that when I can't? You know, that kind of thing. And you know, not to say that people can't. I just think that they feel that they can't. But I think that's
a little bit of projection,
a misconception.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a misconception. You know, the first time I moved, you know, out of my parents' home, and you know, 1,500 miles away, I had to set a date for myself for that move, right? And I did that 2 years in advance. I said, you know, June 21st, whatever year it was, 1998, I think. I'm moving, you know, and I don't know how I chose that date. I just threw a dart at the calendar, and I didn't quite make that date, but I moved the next day.
Wow.
You know, and so it was just, but again, once you start that, it kind of feels like, okay, I feel more mobile. The first one's the hardest.
You said inertia at the beginning. Shay, what was your catalyst for like your transition from New York to?
I honestly went to San Diego to visit my friend like, cause she was having a surgery, and I was like, you know what, I'm working remote anyway, I can take care of you. And I always say, like, the minute I got off the plane, I just felt like I was home. Yeah. Like, I just felt home, and I was like, I kept saying, like, as soon as I got to her place, I'm like, I'm moving here. And I think
she
we
does
both
that everywhere we go. I'm not even kidding.
I'm home.
But I think we both, like, I was saying it, but I'm like, okay, maybe I'm gonna go back to New York. I have my apartment. My lease ends in November, and then I'll come out here in November. But I felt like if I went back to New York and stayed until, you know, the fall, that I wouldn't leave. And I was maybe in San Diego for 3 weeks, and my landlord texted me and was like, if you want to break your lease, you can with no penalty to me. And I was like, wow, this is working out perfectly. And I called my parents, and I was like, I'm moving to San Diego. And of course they had a million questions, but I'm like, if I go back to New York, I'm not going to be happy. Like, it's not what I want to do. If I have to leave my job, like, I'm willing to, like, literally leave everything to, like, make this move. And I always tell, like, my friends back home, because obviously what I present on social media, I'm not going to post, like, my hard times. But I'm like, that was the hardest, like, loneliest period of my life, like, those first few months when I moved out here, because my friend that was living in San Diego ended up going back to New York. So I'm like, oh great, I'm out here.
Switcheroo.
I've seen it.
I was like, wow, you couldn't like wait maybe a year to like out on my feet. But yeah, it was really like it was a great time for me, but it was really challenging. Like I actually had to leave my job because they were like I was contracted with New York, so like you can't live in California and work in New York. And I didn't have any friends. Like, my cousin was great because she knew I was going through it, and came out and visited me and stayed with me and stuff. But yeah, it was a really like hard time, but I feel like it shaped me, and I'm happy I did it, because now again I'm like, okay, if I want to move somewhere, I know I can do it, and I did it literally by myself.
And it's so important. It sounds like the stars align for you, and that's a great catalyst.
Sometimes, you know, the universe abides. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, moving to London was probably an easier transition because you spoke the language, right? Yeah. But what about moving to Barcelona?
So it was definitely a transition that we were apprehensive, but it was because I had, you know, about 25 pounds extra in tow in terms of a 2-year-old, and just wanted it to be. So I've said this since she's been born. I don't know if she's gonna be blessed with any sort of intellect. I don't know if we're gonna be able to leave her with any windfall of, you know, of monetary means. But I know I can bless her with a multicultural experience and get her dual language, if not, you know, 3 or 4 languages, and so I just wanted the transition to be beneficial for her, and so but the challenge was I wasn't concerned about language, even though my language skills here in Spain and in Barcelona, because they have also Catalan on top of Castellano, Spanish, my language skills are lacking. But so much of what I do relies on English-speaking clients and English-speaking intermediaries. So people that would be referrers of that business are English speakers. So I was never concerned professionally. And I mean, I knew enough words. My vocabulary is probably close to 800 to 1,000 words, but I probably sound like a 2-year-old because I'm just like kind of firing off like.
The conjugation is the difficult
Yeah.
part, right? It's easy to know the verb, but putting it into future tense, past tense, imperfect, and there's all these weird things that grammatically don't exist in your native tongue. Right?
Exactly, and what's interesting is that like I'm not trying to encourage people to move here without deference to the language. You can come here, you can get by, and that's what I was able to do, and that's why I wasn't necessarily like scared. I could get in a taxi, tell them where I wanted to go. I could order food, but I think in order to ingratiate yourself culturally and with the community, you're going to want to learn the language and in a medical emergency, we had what we thought was a electrical fire threat about 6 months ago, and we basically called the equivalent of 911, and they did speak English, albeit much better than I speak Spanish, but it wasn't great. And then when the police were here, they spoke their English was okay. But the fire department didn't speak any English, nor should they, by the way. I want to be, hand up. But it was like one of those things where it's like, we need to take a step forward. And so that is the really, the obvious, but at the same time, the true transitionary challenge of being here.
Have you had any sort of mishaps that were a function of, language or?
Yes. Actually, it's funny you say that because, so I was on the train. From here to Valencia a couple months ago, and I had been struggling with asking for a napkin, you know what I mean? Like, so I'd gone to the food cart and I wanted to get a napkin, and I want to say like 2 or 3 days prior to that, I had seen the word servilleta for napkin, and it was kind of stuck in there. But I went to Google Translate and I looked up napkin. Okay, so I'm like, perdón, I have my food there in my arms, and I'm like, I was like, ¿tienes pañales? And they kind of froze, and then I said, pañales? And I was like, they were dying laughing. Pañales is napkin, but it's like diaper, sanitary. And it's like Pampers. So that's a mishap.
I've only had my period once, and it was on a train to Valencia.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that really was. My period.
I think they were in shock. Let's just put it that way. They thought I was in transition. So it's So I've had mishaps like that, but it's.
I feel like Google Translate's a good tool, because even when I was trying to communicate with someone the other day, he didn't even speak Spanish, he spoke Italian. I was like, I can just go to my phone and hit translate and it goes, and I'm like, I'm so happy we have that feature.
But you have to be careful with it because it uses context as well, right? Yeah. So if you just put in a word, in this case, you can get a kind of a true translation, but it's
not the one you want,
right? So sometimes I have found this to be the case where I know that's not the right word because I can kind of, I can't quite access it, but it's in there somewhere, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Let me put in a sentence, and it's like, and then it changes it, and you're like, oh, okay, if you would have put like, napkin, you get pañales, but if you put in like,
can I please get a napkin and wipe my face?
I was gonna say a napkin and fork. They're gonna give you, you're gonna get the servillete tinidor, right?
Exactly.
Instead of going the wrong direction.
That's exactly right. And I mean, I think the other thing too is that having those words, like I said, the vocabulary, which I probably, if you have an 800 to 1,000 word vocabulary, then you know like 90% of the language, but the issue is that once you've expressed yourself, understanding what they're asking in return to then be able to access more.
And then you have to like translate in your head and translate how you're going to say it back to them.
So it takes a little bit of a repetitive environment, you know what I mean, in situation and contextual situation to then, But again, I feel like my now soon to be 3-year-old daughter and we're going through this at the same time. You know?
Yeah.
But she's her brain is going to be a little bit more receptive to learning these new things. But,
And how's it been for Christy, your wife?
So I think when we first moved here, she was able to work remotely for her U.S. company that had a UK headquarters branch, which she worked out of for 6 years in a transitionary period. But they weren't able to support that long term. And the reason I share that is because I think she's really been able to, for the past 7 months, she's really been able to lean into being Eliza's mom. You know what I mean? Like daycare, drop off, daycare, pick up, cooking, being around the home, taking in some yoga. So she's been able to lean into that. That's really awesome. Good. I think she may start to get kind of like itchy feet and want to start doing something, and I think she's she might be looking at like a communications and branding company, launching something like that. But at the same time,
sounds like a collab is in the works.
It could be. Yeah. So, but I think she recognizes that we're doing and living a certain experience that would be very difficult to replicate in either the UK or even in the US in a single income household right now.
Yeah.
So the opportunity, like I said, as a family is really great, and it's kind of it may not be forever, but it's for now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
for
great.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Well, it's been great talking to you, Todd. I mean, as always, when you're such a good friend that when we don't talk for, I don't know, months or even probably sometimes there's been years. Nah, I shouldn't say years, but at least there's a duration, and then we get back together and fall right back into our old habits, and easy. You're such an easy person to talk to. Your personality fills the room, and it's just so cool to get to connect with someone when we're so far from home. Yeah. Right. What are we, about 5,000 miles from San Diego, something like that. Yeah. So I mean, it's just been.
It's the same for me. I mean, when I see you, even if it's been more time than it should, it's I think we all are able to fall right into what is familiar, with each other, and what we appreciate about each other. So I also, and I know I referenced it before about the hardest thing about leaving Indiana 20 years ago, but it's one of those things where it was very difficult. I look back and I'm like, I wish I would have stayed and gotten or had 2 more years with everybody. But we were talking about it last night. Everybody left.
Yeah, so, it was just a moment in time that was crucial in, I think, our adult development.
Yeah.
Right? These are friends that we still hold close. Yeah. And I think I mentioned to you yesterday that I don't think I've made a new friend in 10 or 15 years. And I kind of like it that way. Yeah. So thanks again for having us here in your home, sharing your experiences and some good, some bad, some ugly.
Yeah, and some pinatas. Well, thanks again for allowing me to join you, and I wish you guys all the best in this venture.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a wrap for. I guess this is going to become a travel segment as we continue on, and it's always great to share moments and stories with our friends. So keep listening. More to come.
Thanks for joining us. This is everywhere you can find your podcast. I'm seeing.
Shit! It wasn't recording.
Are you serious?
No.
Why do you do that?
Thanks for tuning in to Anything But Cliche. Hit follow, smash that subscribe button, and maybe even send this to someone who really needs to hear it. For the spicy stuff we don't say on air, follow the show on Instagram at @anythingbutcliche. And for the full episodes, blog, and more, visit olismedia.com. Anything But Cliche is recorded in studios in San Diego, California, and proudly produced by Oles Media, an IVC media company.
Oles Media.